It was just another rain-soaked Tuesday at Ruby's Diner, where the clink of forks against chip plates and the low hum of old jukebox tunes filled the silence between Sadie Blake's thoughts. Thoughts that drifted far from the smell of burnt coffee and half-hearted tips that barely paid rent, her apron stained with ketchup and broken dreams, her smile tired but polite, hiding the ache of longing for something, anything beyond this. She had grown used to the blur of nameless faces, customers who never remembered her name, let alone cared to ask, until the bell above the door jingled and in stepped a storm-drenched stranger whose very presence shifted the air. A man tall, poised, his jet-black coat clinging to his frame, water dripping from tousled hair that framed eyes so blue they looked like stolen fragments of a lightning storm. He slid into the booth by the window without a word, his tailored suit whispering wealth and enigma. And when she approached with her notepad and default smile, expecting entitlement or arrogance, he surprised her with a soft, just coffee, his voice calm, deep, and unexpectedly warm. But it wasn't the coffee that kept him glued to that booth. It was the fire in her words when she challenged his compliments, the sarcasm laced with sadness in her laughter, and the way she didn't hesitate to call him out when he made some smooth remark, like she wasn't intimidated by his watch worth more than her car. He asked her about the diner, her dreams, her scars behind the smile, and for the first time in years, Sadie found herself opening up, cautiously, revealing pieces of her truth to a man who looked like he belonged to another universe. The storm outside swelled like the tension between them, each glance lingering longer than the last, their conversations slipping into stolen moments that felt too personal, too intense for two strangers. When he finally rose to leave, she noticed how the thunder seemed to pause, as if the sky itself waited to see what would happen next. He didn't ask for her number, didn't hand her a business card like most men with money did. But when she offered him a spare umbrella, expecting a quick goodbye, he stunned her by stepping close, wrapping his fingers gently around her wrist, pulling her outside into the rain with a boyish grin that melted every defense she had. There beneath the streetlight halo, as raindrops slid down her cheeks like tears from a story she hadn't told yet, he leaned in without hesitation, his lips brushing hers with a passion that tasted like both promise and danger, igniting something wild in her chest she didn't know existed. The kiss wasn't practiced or perfect. It was real, charged, messy, like two souls crashing into each other with years of unmet longing. And just when her heart could barely process what had happened, he pulled back slowly, rainwater dripping from his lashes, and looked at her with an expression she couldn't name, part desperation, part awe, as he whispered the impossible. "Marry me." She laughed, breathless, stunned, unsure if it was a joke or a dare, because men like him didn't marry girls who cleaned up booths and walked home in sneakers with holes. But as he disappeared into the night with one last glance, the raindrops still falling and her lips still tingling, Sadie felt something unshakable shift in her. Like destiny had finally noticed her. Like maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change forever. Sadie hadn't even fully processed the surreal kiss or the absurd proposal when, the very next morning, the bell above Ruby's diner door rang again, and there he was. Elliot Carter, standing tall, dry this time, impeccably dressed, but stripped of last night's mischief. In his hands, a bouquet of wildflowers that didn't scream wealth, but intention. He wasn't smiling. His electric blue eyes held a calm gravity, and before she could speak, he said her name. Not like a stranger, but like someone who'd spent the night turning it over in his mind, savoring its shape. "I wasn't joking," he said, quiet and certain, placing the flowers gently on the counter. "I meant every word." She blinked, stunned, thinking this must be some rich guy's bet or a bored man's thrill, but he continued before doubt could settle in. "Spend 1 week with me, 7 days. If nothing's real by the end, I'll vanish from your life. No pressure, no mess, no strings." His tone was serious but unforced, and something in her, equal parts disbelief and curiosity, nodded before her mind caught up. The limo arrived an hour later, black and gleaming like a vessel into another realm, And as it rolled through winding highways and pine-studded roads toward Lake Tahoe, Sadie sat in stunned silence, wondering if she was insane or brave. When they arrived, the estate unfolded like a dream too pristine to trust. Walls of glass reflecting the sky, a lake shimmering like silver beneath mountain shadows, staff gliding silently like shadows in a play. But nothing froze her faster than the woman waiting on the marble steps. Vivian Carter, elegant, icy, and armed with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So this is the waitress," she said coolly, every syllable laced with judgment, her glance sharp enough to slice diamonds. Sadie smiled back tightly, standing taller, refusing to flinch. Inside, the luxury pressed on her like invisible hands. Crystal chandeliers, vaulted ceilings, art that probably cost more than her entire life. But behind closed doors, Elliot was nothing like the world he owned. He was quieter, more human, and on the first night he poured her a glass of wine and told her about his brother, Caleb, how the crash happened on a snowy road not far from where they were now, how Elliot had been driving, how the guilt still clawed at him. Night after night he unraveled stories like thread pulled loose from a guarded tapestry, a childhood filled with pressure, a father who measured worth in stock values, a mother who saw vulnerability as weakness. And somehow, in those dim-lit hours by the fireplace or walking under Tahoe's starlit skies, Sadie saw the man behind the fortune, a haunted soul craving peace, not power. She wasn't sure when her wariness began to soften, but it did, until on the fourth day, her phone buzzed while she unpacked in the guest wing, a message from an unknown number that chilled her to the bone. "You're not the first." She stared, pulse racing, rereading it 3 times. No name, no context, just the cruel clarity of warning. She deleted it, but couldn't shake the unease. The next day, another message came. "Ask him what happened to the last girl." Sadie confronted Elliot, but he only looked confused, genuinely caught off guard, promising he had no idea who was behind it. Still, the seed of doubt took root. Staff whispered behind her back. Vivian watched her like a hawk circling prey. And even the house, beautiful and vast, felt like it held secrets in its walls. Yet in the moments it was just her and Elliot, laughing over burnt toast he tried to make, or sitting in silence while rain tapped against the windows. Something real pulsed between them, raw and undeniable. But with every text, every sideways glance, Sadie realized her presence was threatening something buried. Someone didn't want her there. And now she wasn't just deciding if she could love Elliot. She was wondering if she was safe in his world at all. Sadie didn't know why she felt the sudden compulsion to explore Elliot's library, but something in the air had shifted. An unease that clung to the corners of the grand mansion, hidden behind its glossy exterior. The house, once a sanctuary, now felt like a gilded cage. She had learned to push past the whispers of the staff, the lingering glances from Vivian, and even the strange, unsettling texts. But the library was different, more personal. Something told her it held answers, or at least the truth about the man who had captivated her heart and shattered her defenses. As she perused the shelves, her fingers grazed the edge of a locked drawer in the corner. It wasn't a part of the room that had caught her attention before, an unassuming wooden box tucked beneath books she hadn't noticed. Curiosity gnawed at her, and before she could stop herself, she found a way to break the lock. The drawer creaked open, revealing photos that stole her breath away. She didn't know why it felt like a punch to the gut, but there they were. Photographs of a woman who could have been her twin, the same striking brunette hair, the same warm smile, the same graceful elegance in every picture. Isla Monroe, the name scrawled across the back of each one. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest as she sifted through the photographs, seeing not just a resemblance, but the kind of love captured in the way Elliot's eyes followed Isla, in the way they touched, the way their lives seemed intertwined. She couldn't breathe. He had never mentioned her, not once. As she placed the last picture back, she knew what she had to do. She couldn't just keep wondering, couldn't allow the doubts to swirl inside her any longer. She marched to Elliot's study, her face pale but resolute, and before she could even gather her thoughts, she blurted, "Who is Isla Monroe?" His expression faltered, the weight of her question hitting him like a tidal wave. Silence hung in the air as he took a long breath, his eyes shifting to the floor, before meeting hers with an honesty that both relieved and terrified her. "She was my fiancée," he said softly. "She disappeared 3 years ago. No note, no body, just gone." The words echoed in her mind, and the room spun around her. "But why didn't you tell me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. His lips parted, and he shook his head, the vulnerability in his gaze almost too much to bear. "I tried to move on, but I couldn't. After she vanished, I couldn't feel anything. Not truly. I've been—" His voice trailed off, and the weight of his admission seemed to hang between them. Sadie's throat tightened. "A replacement?" she asked, the words slipping out before she could stop them. He didn't respond immediately, but the silence told her everything she needed to know. She wasn't just a woman he was growing close to. She was a way to fill the empty space Isla had left behind. The thought of being someone's second choice, a stand-in for a lost love, tore at her. Heartbroken, she spun on her heel, a bitter taste rising in her mouth. She couldn't stay here, not like this. She couldn't be a bandage for a wound that hadn't healed, no matter how much Elliot seemed to need her. She grabbed her things, her hands shaking as she packed her suitcase, her mind a blur of emotions: betrayal, anger, and heartbreak. She reached for the door, ready to leave it all behind, when the sound of footsteps in the hall made her freeze. Before she could react, the door to her room burst open. A masked figure stood in the doorway, their presence ominous, unsettling. In one fluid motion, the intruder stepped forward, dropping something on the bed. A bracelet. The sight of it made her blood run cold. It was Isla's bracelet, the one in all the photos. Her breath caught in her throat as the masked figure turned and left as quickly as they came, the door slamming shut behind them. She rushed to the bed, staring at the bracelet in disbelief. A note was tucked beneath it. "Run, before you vanish too." Her heart pounded in her chest, the weight of the message sinking deep into her bones. Fear coiled in her stomach. But even more than that, doubt gnawed at her. What had happened to Isla? And why did the note make it feel like she was stepping into a dangerous story she didn't belong in? Was she just a fleeting chapter in Elliot's broken past? Or was there something far darker at play? Something she couldn't see? Her mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. She had to know the truth. But was the truth worth the risk of losing herself? Sadie couldn't shake the image of the note left behind by the masked intruder and the bracelet that now seemed like a chilling reminder of Isla's existence. It gnawed at her, each moment that passed, making her question everything. Was Isla really gone, or was something far darker unfolding right under her nose? The fear had settled deep inside her, but there was a pull to the unknown, a strange feeling that she needed to dig deeper, to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She couldn't just let Isla's memory be reduced to a missing persons case. It was more than that. Isla was real. She was someone, and she had been silenced. Sadie found herself pacing around Elliot's mansion, the thick air of secrecy surrounding every inch of the place. She had to start somewhere, and the greenhouse, the old structure hidden behind the grand estate, was the one place that seemed untouched by time, as though it might hold some forgotten clue. There was something about it, something that drew her in like a magnet. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows as she slipped into the greenhouse, a place that felt as abandoned as the memories Elliot had locked away. The smell of damp earth filled the air, and the faint rustling of leaves sounded like whispers, secrets of the past begging to be heard. It was there, in the dusty corner of the room, where she found it, a small leather-bound diary, hidden among broken garden tools and shattered pots. Her heart skipped a beat as she opened the first page, trembling as she read the words written in Isla's hand. The diary was a quiet confession, a record of a love once shared. But as Sadie turned to the final entry, the words hit her like a slap in the face. "He says he loves me, but someone here wants me gone. I think it's not Elliot I should fear, but her. Vivian, Elliot's mother." Sadie's breath caught in her throat as the reality of the words settled in. Vivian had been the one to target Isla, but why? Was it jealousy, control, or something more sinister? She felt her pulse quicken as the pieces began to fit, though she still had so many questions. Who could she trust now? Was there a truth buried deeper than the one she had been shown? Before she could process it all, Sadie's legs carried her back to the main house where Elliot was. She needed answers, and this time, she wasn't going to hide from them. The confrontation was inevitable. She walked into Elliot's study, her heart pounding as she handed him the diary, her hands shaking. "I found it," she whispered, "in the greenhouse. Isla's diary. She, she was afraid of your mother, Elliot. She thought your mom was the one who wanted her gone." Elliot froze, his eyes wide as he stared at the diary in disbelief. His face paled as the weight of her words sank in. I, I had no idea," he stammered, the shock evident in his voice. "My mother, I don't know what to believe anymore." He looked like a man suddenly torn between the woman who raised him and the one who had started to fill his heart with hope again. His voice broke as he added, "I never hurt Isla. I loved her. I swear I never wanted her to disappear." Sadie felt a mixture of relief and fear. Relief that Elliot wasn't the one behind it, but fear of what this all meant. Vivian, the woman who had controlled everything, who had always kept her distance, was a far greater threat than they had realized. They had to find the truth. As they spoke, a shared resolve began to form between them. They weren't just two people caught in the middle of a tragic love story anymore. They were partners in uncovering a dangerous secret. They were united by the need to expose the truth. But just as hope began to rise, a chill swept over the room when Sadie's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her stomach tightening as she read the message. It was from an unknown number. The message brief but chilling. "Don't fall for him. He's lying to you. I know the truth." The message was signed with a name that made her heart stop. Ela. It was unmistakably her handwriting, the same delicate script from the diary, the same feel of desperation. Her mind spun. If Isla was alive, then what did that mean? Why had she sent the message? What was the truth that Isla knew? And why had she stayed hidden for so long? The doubts that had been festering within Sadie only deepened now. Was Isla trying to warn her? Was she still in danger? Sadie's hands trembled as she handed the phone to Elliot, his face paling as he read the message. "She's alive," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper, as if the thought alone might shatter the fragile thread that had held their connection together. "But how? Why hasn't she come forward?" Elliot's voice cracked, the pain of loss now mixed with the fear of the unknown. Sadie didn't know how to respond. The man she had begun to trust now seemed as lost as she felt. What had happened to Isla? Where was she? And what truth was being kept from them both? The answers seemed just out of reach, like the pieces of a puzzle that refused to fit. As the hours stretched on, Sadie realized she had no choice but to follow the trail, no matter how dangerous. The truth was slipping through her fingers, but she would fight to find it. She couldn't afford to let Isla's voice be silenced again. The walls of the mansion suddenly felt smaller, enclosing her in a world full of lies and secrets. The only thing she could trust was the feeling that she was on the brink of something far darker than either of them could have imagined. Under the vast expanse of stars, the tension that had built up over the past days seemed to dissipate, replaced by a quiet, serene stillness between Sadie and Elliot. The world beyond the cliffside, with its gleaming lights from the distant town, felt so far away. Here in this private haven above Lake Tahoe, there was no pretension, no hidden motives, just the two of them. A soft fire crackled beside them, casting flickering shadows on their faces as they sat together on the blanket. Sadie, feeling the weight of the moment, couldn't help but let her gaze drift to Elliot's face, trying to make sense of the emotions swirling in his stormy blue eyes. He looked different here, less guarded, more vulnerable. For the first time, he wasn't the millionaire with secrets and a haunted past. He was just a man, sharing his heart with her. "Sadie," he said quietly, his voice hoarse as he looked out at the stars, "I don't know if I've ever really lived until you came into my life. I thought I was done, that I had nothing left to fight for. But then you—" He trailed off as though the words were too heavy to fully form. Sadie reached over, her hand brushing his, and he turned his gaze toward her. His eyes softened, vulnerable and sincere. "You brought me back to life," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "I never thought I'd feel anything real again. You've done something to me I can't explain. When I'm with you, everything feels like it might be okay." There was a rawness in his words that took Sadie by surprise, and her heart ached for him. She had seen the signs, the walls he'd built around himself, the self-doubt that gnawed at him when no one was watching. But hearing it from his lips, the confession of just how broken he felt, struck her deeply. She cupped his face gently, her thumb grazing the stubble on his jaw, as she looked into his eyes with such tenderness, it almost felt as though she was holding his very soul in her hands. "You're not broken, Elliot," she whispered softly, her words reaching deep into his heart. "You're just afraid to be loved." The silence between them deepened, but this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. It was an understanding, an unspoken bond that grew stronger with each passing second. In that quiet moment, the world seemed to disappear, and there was only the warmth of their connection. Without thinking, she leaned in, her lips meeting his in a kiss that was slow, intentional, full of the promise of something more. His lips were soft but firm, and she felt the weight of everything they'd both been carrying melt away in that one tender kiss. The kiss was more than just an expression of love. It was a release, a surrender of everything they had been holding on to. When they pulled apart, their foreheads rested against each other, and for the first time, Sadie felt like she truly understood the depth of the man in front of her. They weren't two people from different worlds anymore. They were just two souls, flawed and beautiful, who had found each other in the chaos. Elliot pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her, and they settled beneath the stars, the blanket cocooning them in warmth. No more pretenses, no more secrets. Just two people, choosing each other. As the fire crackled beside them, they lay in silence, the weight of the world lifting from their shoulders as they found solace in each other's presence. The stars above were their silent witnesses, as if they too had been waiting for this moment. In that peaceful moment, Sadie realized that this wasn't just a fleeting connection. It wasn't just about a kiss in the rain anymore. What she shared with Elliot was deeper than that, more enduring. It was about healing, about two scarred souls who had finally found the courage to love. And as the night stretched on, they both drifted into sleep in each other's arms, no longer separated by their pasts or their fears, but united in their hearts. They weren't just a billionaire and a waitress. They were two people who had chosen love, despite everything else. And in that simple, beautiful truth, they found everything they needed. The morning after their intimate night under the stars, when everything felt right in their world, the peaceful illusion shattered. Isla Monroe, alive, angry, and unrecognizable, stormed into Elliot's estate like a storm that no one could see coming. With a lawyer by her side and reporters trailing behind her, she entered the Carter mansion with the fury of a woman who had been wronged and had nothing to lose. Her presence was an electric jolt, a sudden jarring reality in a place that had felt like sanctuary. She didn't hesitate for a moment before accusing Vivian, Elliot's mother, of orchestrating a scheme to bury her alive, all in order to protect the family's business. Isla's voice rang out through the grand hall, her words sharp with conviction as she revealed secrets about the Carter family's finances and how she had uncovered a dangerous trail of corruption and deceit. Elliot's heart sank. The woman he had loved, who he thought had vanished without a trace, was standing before him, and she wasn't the fragile memory he had carried. She was a storm. Vivian's response was immediate, defensive, calculating, and cold. She tried to discredit Isla, painting her as a mentally unstable woman, someone whose mind had been warped by whatever wild conspiracy she had conjured. But Isla wasn't just talking. She had proof, recordings, emails, and even a journal filled with damning evidence. The more she spoke, the clearer it became that Vivian had been involved in serious embezzlement and financial manipulation, things that would shatter the Carter family's empire if exposed. Elliot's entire world tilted on its axis. His trust in his mother, his last remaining family, was obliterated, and for the first time, he saw Vivian for what she truly was. a woman capable of unimaginable betrayal. His mother had orchestrated not only Isla's disappearance, but also the manipulative lies that had kept the truth hidden for years. Elliot's heart ached as the walls that had once kept him safe crumbled, piece by piece, but the devastation didn't end there. Isla, with a sneer that seemed to cut straight through Elliot, turned her wrath on Sadie. She accused Sadie of being nothing more than a rebound experiment, a mere distraction to soothe Elliot's wounded heart after Isla's supposed death. Sadie felt the sting of those words deep in her chest, her worst fears coming to life. She wasn't just caught in a family scandal. She was a pawn in someone else's twisted game. It was too much to bear, the weight of the lies and the cruelty of Isla's accusations. Once again, Sadie tried to walk away, her instinct screaming at her to flee from the chaos. But this time, Elliot wouldn't let her. He reached for her hand, his voice shaking with raw emotion as he looked into her eyes. "I don't care about the noise," he whispered fiercely, as though the world outside didn't matter at all. "I care about you, only you." His words pierced through her fear, sinking deep into her heart. This wasn't about public opinion. This wasn't about the scandal. This was about them. For the first time, Elliot stood up to the world. He exposed the truth to the media, his voice unwavering as he revealed the corruption within his family, the lies his mother had perpetuated, and how she had torn apart the lives of those closest to her. He didn't hold back. With one decisive act, he cleared Sadie's name and cut all ties with Vivian, leaving behind the toxic legacy of a woman who had betrayed him in every way imaginable. The press swarmed, the cameras flashing in their faces, but all Sadie could feel was the weight of Elliot's words. They were raw, real, and they echoed with love and determination. No matter what happened next, no matter how the world saw them, he had chosen her. In the chaos of the storm, they were each other's refuge, and for the first time, Sadie felt something she hadn't allowed herself to believe: hope. Under a sky streaked with the silver hush of rain and the bruised light of early dusk, Ruby's diner flickered with familiarity, greasy counters, warm coffee, and the ghost of a night that had rewritten everything. Sadie, now calmer, wiser, stood behind the counter, wiping a glass with steady hands, her apron tied like armor. The world outside had spun, burned, and collapsed, but here she stood, grounded in the scent of grilled cheese and the quiet dignity of survival. She wasn't the same waitress anymore. Her heart had been broken open, mended with truth, laced with danger, and ultimately, love. When the diner bell rang, she looked up expecting just another weary customer, but in walked Elliot, soaked in rain again, but without the pristine armor of a billionaire. His tailored suits had been replaced by a plain shirt and jeans, and in his eyes a strange serenity had taken hold, one that only comes after you've lost everything and found what matters most. The diner hushed as he walked toward her, every step echoing like the beat of a forgotten promise. No entourage, no headlines, just him. And when he knelt, it wasn't with flair, but with the weight of 1,000 confessions. "You were never just a waitress," he whispered, voice cracking like the storm outside. "You're the woman who saw the real me, when I didn't even know who that was. You made me believe I was worth more than my money, more than my name. Marry me, not because of the kiss in the rain or the cliffside stars, but because of everything we survived together, because I never want to wake up in a world where you're not mine." Her tears came fast, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming truth of his words. This man had fallen, had bled, had chosen love over legacy, and she had never needed a prince, only someone who saw her beyond the apron and calloused hands. She dropped the glass, forgot the diner, and fell to her knees with him, nodding, whispering yes like it was the only word her heart had ever known. Their wedding was nothing grand, just a clearing by the lake where silence kissed the trees, and the wind held their vows like secrets too sacred for noise. No diamonds, no headlines, just fireflies and stars and a kiss that spoke of endings and beginnings. He slipped a simple ring on her finger, and for the first time, Elliot Carter, once a man with the world, was finally home in the arms of the one woman who loved him without asking for anything in return. And Sadie, once a girl who counted tips and dreamed in silence, had found a life far louder than any fantasy, etched not in luxury, but in scars, sacrifice, and a love that refused to break, even when everything else did.